Ron, I know there's a lot of heavy lifting over at the legislature, but there has to be a bill along the way that you took personal satisfaction out of, isn't there?
Well, there was, and it was called the Women's Special Car License Plate for 29,000 women veterans, and they were so enthusiastic. I was a co-author on this bill, but it was so much fun. They came before my committee, my transportation committee, and we got it done, and they're still celebrating.
Ron Erhardt is also seeking re-election in a district that leans more and more Democrat. That's Senate District 49A, Northern Edina. I live there. Ron has ably served the district for the 10 terms in the state legislature. Ron, welcome for the first time to Democratic Visions.
Nice to see you.
I know every year, without fail, you're walking that 4th of July parade in Edina.
And when I get out there in the parades, I don't get much time with them, but I shake their hand.
Right.
That's a lot of fun.
2 years ago, you not only got me to walk in the parade with you, you got me to walk backwards in the parade. It's only about 80 degrees, and I got to wear this white Erhardt t-shirt, but no problem. I felt that was good. I was just one of many people doing that, so it was fun.
Yeah, I was.
Until July 2008, Ron was endorsed by the Republicans in Senate District 49 and its predecessors, and won election as a fiscal conservative and a social moderate, and served 8 terms in the legislature. However, in 2008, a rock-ribbed Republican was given the endorsement by the local Republicans as an aftermath to a vote to override then Governor Pawlenty and now CEO of some financial industry lobbying group. Pawlenty frowned on Ron and 5 other Republicans who voted to override his veto of a bill that would have gradually increased the gas tax over a period of time to fund needed repairs to Minnesota roads and bridges. Ron is chair of the House Transportation Committee, and he's got a very solid record in transportation. But before we turn to your record in transportation, I want to set the stage here. A fellow by the name of Dario Anselmo is running against you in this year's election. It's charitable to say that his record is sparse, but he is on record answering a questionnaire from the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, and it shows that he is opposed to any realistic meeting of the acute transportation needs of Edina in Minnesota. Here's his question posed by the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce. How should Minnesota address its unmet transportation needs in the near future? His answer: use existing revenues. Question: do you support an increase in the fuel tax for maintenance and expansion of roads and bridges? Answer by Dario: no. Now, Ron, what I'd like you to do is describe for our viewers the real problem we're facing transportation-wise and what has to be done.
Our road situation is, on average, 50 years old. It's come to the end of its life in a lot of respects, and we need to rebuild it, and for that it takes a lot of money. So we have to decide that we're going to have proper infrastructure for people to get their crops to market, people to get to the markets, and for commerce in general, and for everyday citizens. And we need to do that, and that's all there is to it.
Well, how are we going to fund it? That was the thrust of the questions delivered to Dario by the Chamber of Commerce.
Well, the existing ways of funding are still the most useful, and that is gas tax, the tab fees that we pay when we buy our tabs for the cars, and sales tax on vehicles when you buy them.
Are those present revenues up to the task?
They are building more efficient cars, and so for a number of years the gas tax has been level and not increasing, even though there are more cars on the road, and now it's beginning to diminish. So we are going to have to find in the longer term a different way of funding our roads. Can't wait for gas tax money to come in. You have to do big chunks of money. We can't do any more bonding because we don't have enough debt service money, and we're flat right now.
I assume what you're telling me, Ron, is that we are going to have to increase the fuel tax, maybe at the wholesale level, perhaps. Would that be a solution?
Some other states have done that, and I think that we just began to talk about that last session. We also have to look at low mileage and then electric cars. They all use the roads, so we're going to have to find some replacement methods to charge the ones that are getting away with driving on the roads with just a shot of electricity in their car.
Well, sounds like a daunting task. Now, I don't want to get into this in any great detail, but are you the guy that put together the package that allowed us to add that existing lane out on 494 that's going to be able to make it a 3-laner all the way out to through Plymouth?
Actually, I did. Maple Grove and Plymouth were very anxious for the last 15 years to get a 3rd lane in there. It's one of the few.
Well, of course, anybody from Edina or Eden Prairie that's driving out that way needs
Absolutely.
that 3rd lane also.
And that's how I became accustomed to getting stuck in traffic out there. So I thought, well, let's call in the people. I called in the mayors of both those towns and said, do you really want this? Or should we let the highway department go ahead and build a lane that will be 80% efficient and only used for buses? And they all said no, and so I passed the bill unanimously.
Major kudos to you. That's a heck of an accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to touch on another point that was brought up in this Minnesota Chamber of Commerce questionnaire that was answered by Dario Anselmo. And the question was this: if elected, what will be your top priority? This is his answer. During the 2014 legislative session, a $1 million projected surplus presented an opportunity to reduce taxes on businesses and boost the Minnesota economy. For the most part, this opportunity was squandered. Do you believe that you, as a part of the 2014 legislature, squandered the budget surplus?
Well, not really. We did $550 million worth of, or almost half of that, in relieving business-to-business tax. They were my bills, as a matter of fact, to take out the business-to-business tax. And a business-to-business tax is where a business buys something, gets tax on it, and then they add a tax on it for the consumer to buy.
Can I interject here?
Yes.
That was passed, I believe, in 2013, although you voted no for that bill.
I actually voted no on the 2013 bill for 2 reasons. It had the business-to-business taxes in there. It had a gift tax, only the second, and that's for the people that are trying to pass their estates or their farms or whatever. And it had the high income tax, when I thought there were other ways to do that. I believe in a progressive tax system, but to isolate the high income folks into a 4th tier was a little much.
So approximately half of the surplus went in that direction.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, part of it went into increase the rainy day fund over at the legislature?
Right. I introduced a bill that said we have been running on the same size rainy day fund for about 10, 15 years, and it's time now to increase that, and we did. Not as much as I wanted, but part of it, $150 million, went into increase the rainy day fund. And of course, they did bonding out of that because the Republicans would only agree to an $850 million bonding bill. Of all things, not to put your full weight behind with low interest rates and low costs, when we could have bonded for much more, but they wouldn't go along with it, and it takes 2/3 vote to pass it, so that's where we were stuck with. So we put $200 million in cash into the bonding bill.
Doesn't sound like you squandered that to me.
No, I don't think so.
I was present at the forum conducted by the League of Women Voters here not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I heard you recite 4 matters that are of concern to you. We've covered one. One was transportation. Another was improved education funding.
Yeah.
Is that something that you hope to accomplish over in St. Paul in 2015?
Well, what happened was during the past 10 years, Valenti was borrowing heavily from the schools to balance his budget, which we have to do, the state has to do every year. We had to make that up, $2.5 billion we paid down. We're in a hole to start with, and now we put education in the position of funding early childhood and early childhood scholarships. Funding K-12, we increased it for Edina was about $500 per pupil, and then we also went to the freeze in the public post-secondary schools on tuition. So we covered the whole gamut.
Well, speaking of that forum put on by the League, there was a curious answer by your opponent, Dario Anselmo, to a question concerning a bill which would have brought transparency to independent expenditures to independent mailings. That is, who's sending those out.
What is your stand on the campaign finance disclosure bill?
They've been sent into your district and other districts around, and they're scurrilous. They try and portray the person that's the recipient of the attention in the worst light. Dario and Selmo didn't seem to have a clue as to what was being discussed or brought up by the league.
I pass on that because I don't think I'm familiar with it. So if that's
I tried to explain it to them, but
Yes, well, tell me, I mean, was that an important bill, and what happened?
well, I really think it's an important bill. People like the Koch brothers and former Senator Norm Coleman.
You
who
mean
are-
former senator and Saudi Arabia lobbyist Norm Coleman?
That's the guy. They are funding through their organizations a lot of irrational and.
How about scurrilous, with that word?
I did use that word, and they took it out of something I wrote,
see.
so I didn't know if it was a good word or not.
So, what happened? Did it pass?
No, it didn't pass. There are two segments of the lobbying forces over there at the Capitol that talk their members, the gun lobbyists and the anti-choice people, against that. Apparently, they don't want themselves exposed when they put money into the type of thing that we're trying to give transparency to.
Wow.
And I was really disappointed.
Tell me, Ron, I mean, as you enter this election and having served as a Democrat now, do you still consider yourself to be fiscally conservative and socially moderate?
Oh, there's no question about that. It's kind of been ingrained for years. I'm that way in my personal life and in my financial planning, which I've done for 40 years now.
And I'm not asking you to blow your own horn, but you'll have to answer this question. Who's endorsed you this year?
You know, I really have to read that because I can't remember all.
Well, I'll start reading for you. Conservation Minnesota,
That's right.
Sierra Club, Professional Firefighters, Nurses Association,
They have.
Education Minnesota,
They have too.
Planned Parenthood, NARAL,
Yep.
and the Police and Peace Officers Association. I don't know if I've hit them all.
No, you haven't. I have another half a dozen that that's enough for now. That's
Yeah,
pretty broad spectrum of.
Yeah, it sure is. I do want to talk, Ron, about one thing that I skipped over. That is the Edina War Memorial. That's a big deal. Tell me about your involvement in that, please.
Well, first of all, when I found out about it, I contributed a small amount of money, and I thought they were going to raise $450,000 themselves. But then I realized that they were lagging, and I thought, there's no reason why we can't ask for some bonding money from the state. It's been done in other communities. And I put in a bill for 1/2 of the money that they needed, which was $225,000. And I guarded that. It's a small amount, so I had to watch it. all
So
the
it
way
doesn't
for
get
2
dropped
years.
along the
So
way?
it wouldn't get dropped. And finally, on the last week, I was tugging on the sleeve of the bonding chair, and she said, "It's all right, we're going to do it."
Nice.
So
nice.
that gave them the extra boost, and they got really rolling then and raised the rest of their $450,000, and they're going to put that in a spot along 50th and Wooddale, in that little park where the brook is babbling by there.
Oh, sure.
Very
Absolutely.
nice, very nice.
More power to you for getting that accomplished, Ron.
Thank you.
Ron, it's been a pleasure that you've dropped in and talked to our viewers, and we hope to see you after you are reelected this fall. Thanks
Okay,
again.
Thank you so much.
Democratic Visions is independently crafted by volunteers, mostly Democrats, from Eden Prairie, Minnetonka, Edina, and Bloomington.